My name is Sylvie Carver. I am 66 years old. By the time I stepped into the lobby of the Oak Ridge Hotel in downtown Denver, my legs felt like they no longer belonged to me. The flight from Santa Fe had been delayed nearly 4 hours, and all I wanted was a hot shower and a bed that did not shake like an airplane seat. I set my bag down in front of the front desk and tried to smile at the young woman working the night shift. Her name tag read Kara. She greeted me politely, but something in her voice was stretched thin, as if she had been holding her breath for too long. When I handed her my ID, she typed my name, blinked at the screen, then typed again. The faint color in her cheeks faded. "Mrs. Carver, just a moment," she whispered. She glanced behind her, not in the casual way hotel staff usually do, but in short, sharp movements, like someone checking whether a shadow had followed them. I felt the old, familiar irritation rise up inside me, the kind that comes from decades of being treated as if age makes you fragile or confused. I straightened my shoulders, ready to insist that everything was fine and I simply needed a room. But before I could speak, Kara slid a keycard across the counter. The motion was small, almost hidden, as if she did not want anyone to see. "I changed your room," she said quietly. Her hand trembled just enough for me to notice. "Please take this one instead." I frowned. Why is something wrong with the one I booked? Kara swallowed hard. "Mrs. Carver, if you trust your instincts at all, put a hidden camera in your room tonight." Her voice broke at the end. For a moment, I could not breathe. This was not a prank. This was not a young employee overreacting. She looked genuinely afraid. She lowered her eyes and stepped back as if the conversation was over. I picked up the keycard, feeling the weight of it press into my palm. Whatever had frightened her was close enough that she would not say another word. I collected my bag and walked toward the elevator, the quiet hum of the lobby suddenly too loud. Kara kept her gaze on me until the elevator doors closed, and the last thing I saw was her hands clasped tight against her chest, as if she were praying I would listen. Upstairs, the hallway stretched ahead in a line of dim gold light. I tightened my grip on the keycard. I did not know what was waiting behind the door she had given me, but I knew I would not be sleeping without checking every corner of that room, and I would not be ignoring her warning. The elevator doors closed with a soft thud, and for a moment I simply stood there gripping the handrail. Kara's whisper clung to me like cold air. I tried to shake it off, telling myself she was young, tired, maybe frightened by something that had nothing to do with me. But the truth settled slower, heavier. Her fear had been real. As the elevator rose, I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the keycard. "Put a hidden camera in your room," she had said, the kind of sentence that should send anyone racing back to demand answers. Instead, I kept moving, too drained to fight, too unsettled to ignore her. I had not always been this cautious. Years in a classroom had sharpened my instincts, and years after losing my husband, Mark had forced me to listen to them. My children, both in their 40s, now worried each time I traveled. But I had never let that stop me. I worked too hard to build a life after grief, to let fear shrink it again. The elevator doors opened. I stepped into the hallway, rolling my suitcase behind me. My breath sounded louder than it should have. I told myself it was the long day, not dread. Inside the room, I set the suitcase on the chair and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence felt dense, as if the walls were holding their breath too. I reached into the front pocket of my bag and pulled out the little camera my granddaughter, Tessa, had given me last Christmas. She had laughed when she wrapped it. "So you can spy on Whiskers when you travel," she said. "Maybe you'll catch her knocking plants over." I snorted softly at the memory. The device was hardly bigger than a pebble, all smooth plastic and one blinking light when powered on. I turned it over in my hand, feeling the absurdity of it. It was meant for cat mischief, not hotel warnings whispered by trembling receptionists. My phone buzzed. It was my son, Aaron. Mom, you land okay? I hesitated before answering. Just got to the hotel. How late is it? You sound tired. I am. Flight took forever. I swallowed. Something strange happened at check-in. What kind of strange? His voice tightened immediately. The receptionist switched my room without much explanation. Did she say why I hesitated? Saying it out loud made it feel like I was feeding panic. She told me to put a hidden camera in my room. There was silence. Then a sharp inhale. Mom, why would she tell you that I do not know? My voice shook without my permission, but she meant it. Please lock your door. Double check. Call the front desk again if you feel off. His concern wrapped around me like a blanket and a chain at the same time. I loved him for it. I hated the implication that I could not handle one night alone. I am fine, I said gently, just tired. He sighed. Text me if anything else happens, I will. When the call ended, I stared at the camera again. Maybe Kara was jumpy. Maybe I was overthinking. But exhaustion had a way of stripping away the polite habits of older women, those little smiles we give to reassure others we are fine. Tonight, instinct outweighed politeness. I connected the camera to my phone, waiting for the tiny green light to blink. Then I placed it on the dresser, angled toward the door. Setting it down steadied something inside me. I was not helpless. I was not naive. I checked the deadbolt once more, then sat back on the bed, letting the quiet settle around me as the camera watched. Room 512 was at the far end of the hallway, tucked around a corner that felt quieter than the rest of the floor. My original reservation had been on the opposite side near the elevators. According to the email confirmation, this hallway felt different, as if the air itself held something back. I pushed the keycard into the slot. The lock clicked, and I slipped inside, closing the door behind me with more urgency than I intended. The quiet pressed in immediately. I set my bag down and turned the deadbolt, then leaned close to make sure it was fully engaged. That was when I saw them thin scratches around the metal plate where the lock met the frame. Not fresh, but not old either. I touched them lightly. That is not from ordinary use, I muttered. My voice sounded too loud. I opened the door again, just enough to peer out. The ceiling camera mounted above the hallway junction, aimed slightly away from my door. Its angle tilted the wrong direction, as if someone had moved it deliberately. In my years of travel, I had never seen one pointed toward a blank stretch of carpet. I shut the door fast and locked it again. The hairs on my arms rose. Whatever Kara had seen in her system, whatever had made her pale, it was not just nerves. I took the palm-sized camera from the dresser and held it up. All right, I whispered. Let's do this properly. After connecting it to my phone, I walked around the room, holding it at different heights, checking the feed. I finally placed it on the desk, propping it slightly with a folded brochure so it faced directly toward the door and part of the bed. If anyone tried to enter, even quietly, the motion sensor would catch it. I texted my brother, Tom, in room 512. New room. Something seems off. He called instantly. What do you mean off? He asked. His voice carried the older brother firmness he had never lost. The lock has scratches, I said. And the hallway camera is pointed nowhere useful. That should not happen in a decent hotel, he said. You need to stay alert. Do you want me to call someone? No, I said quickly. I just need you to know where I am. He paused. You think Kara saw something? Something about your reservation. I do not know, I said. But she did not want me in my original room. Tom exhaled slowly. All right. Keep the camera on. I want you to sleep with your phone next to you. I planned to. We hung up, and I set the phone on the nightstand. The room felt unnaturally still. Not dangerous yet, just wrong. As if it belonged to someone else before me and remembered them too well. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the small green light of the hidden camera glow steady and calm, the only thing in the room that seemed sure of its purpose. I told myself I only needed water and a small snack before bed, nothing more. The hallway was quiet as I made my way back to the elevator, but something inside me tightened with each step, as if the building itself was holding something unsaid. The lobby lights cast a soft glow when the elevator doors opened. Kara was still behind the desk, shoulders drawn in, eyes fixed on her computer screen. She looked up as I approached, offering a small smile that did not reach her eyes. "Everything all right?" "Mrs. Carver?" "Yes," I replied, though the answer felt thin. "Just need something to drink." Before she could respond, her gaze shifted over my shoulder, quick, sharp, then immediately down again. I turned slightly. A man stood by a pillar near the seating area, plain ball cap, dark jacket, hands in his pockets. He was not waiting for a room. He was not looking for directions. He was watching, not the decor, not the front doors. He was watching the front desk and the elevators. Watching us. He met my eyes for only a second. There was nothing unusual in his expression, but something about the way he held himself made my stomach pull tight. Kara spoke again, voice lower. "The vending machines are down that hallway, to the right." She pointed toward a corridor near the conference rooms, not the one that passed closest to the man. I nodded. "Thank you." Her fingers tapped against the desk. A small, anxious rhythm she cut off as soon as she realized I noticed. The hallway she sent me down was empty, halfway along it. I saw a housekeeping cart parked near a dead-end alcove. No housekeeper, no rooms nearby. It made no sense for it to be there past midnight. I slowed, listening. No rustling, no movement behind the alcove. Only the hum of the lights and the faint echo of footsteps from the lobby. My years in classrooms returned those quiet, instinctive readings of a room, of people, of tension no one wanted to name. I grabbed 2 bottles of water and a pack of crackers, then hurried back. The man was still there, standing exactly where he had been, eyes flicking toward the elevators. Kara did not look up as I passed. She kept her head down, shoulders tight, as if pretending not to exist would keep her safe. I stepped into the elevator, the doors closing between us. The man's gaze followed until the last inch of light disappeared. Back inside room 512, I locked the door before setting my water on the nightstand. The camera's tiny red light blinked steadily from the desk, a quiet reminder that someone else had told me to fear this room before I ever stepped inside it. I tapped my phone and called Aaron. His face appeared on the screen, grainy in the low light. "Mom, you should be asleep by now," he said. "I know. It has been a long day." He squinted. "You're in bed but still dressed. What happened?" I hesitated. "The woman at the desk. Kara, she changed my room. Said it was safer." "What does that mean?" "I truly do not know," I said. "But she seemed frightened." He groaned softly. "Mom, hotels never move rooms for no reason. Did you ask I was too tired?" I admitted. And now I am listening to her. He looked off screen, probably imagining all the terrible things a hotel might hide. "Do not open that door for anyone. Not housekeeping. Not maintenance. No one." Before I could reassure him, he added, "Text me every few hours. Aaron, I am not 12. He smiled, despite himself. "You know I only hover because I care, I know." We ended the call, and I immediately dialed Tom. He answered on the second ring. "Sis, you made it." "Yes." "You sound tight. What's wrong?" I explained everything. The switch, Kara's whisper, the strange man in the lobby. Tom's silence settled between us for a long moment. You set up that camera Tessa gave you, he finally asked. I did. Good. You keep that deadbolt locked. If anyone knocks, you verify through the peephole. Anyone. Even if they claim to be security. I understand. No. Sylvie, listen. His voice firmed in a way that reminded me he had spent decades reading danger for a living. You call me if anything feels off. I do not care if it is a strange noise or a gut feeling. Do not second-guess yourself. The instruction pressed into my chest. Heavier than I expected. All right. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the camera feed. The hallway showed nothing, just muted carpet and the faint shadow of the doorframe. No footsteps. No movement. The stillness should have calmed me. I turned off the bedside lamp and slid under the covers. The weight of exhaustion pulled at me, making my eyelids heavy. The phone buzzed once on the nightstand. Not a call, not a text, just the camera app refreshing its feed. I reached for it out of habit. At first, the screen looked unchanged. Then I noticed it subtle. Almost nothing. The doorknob moved. Not much. Not even enough to click. And just a slow, testing turn, as if someone on the other side wanted to see whether I was awake. Sleep refused to come. I lay on my side, one hand resting on the phone beside me, the other curled under my pillow the way I used to lie when Mark was still alive. Back then, nights in strange rooms did not unsettle me. I felt protected simply because someone else breathed beside me. Now it was only my own breath, shaky and shallow, filling the dark. Every sound in the building felt magnified. The elevator hummed somewhere down the hall. Pipes clicked softly in the walls. A door closed on a different floor. But the thud vibrated up through the frame of mine. The camera's red light blinked steadily across the room, an unblinking witness to my fear. My bones ached from the long travel day. Old bones, stubborn joints, reminders that I was no longer the woman who once ran after teenagers down school hallways without thinking twice. My body had slowed, but my mind had not. That mixed fragility and sharpness made me feel exposed in a way I hated. Around what felt like the middle of the night, soft footsteps passed outside my door. Slow, measured, not the quick stride of another guest heading to their room. They stopped right in front of mine. I pressed a hand over my mouth, holding my breath. A faint whisper slipped through the space beneath the door. Not words, more like breath shaped into intent, then silence. The footsteps retreated, one careful step at a time. I waited until the quiet settled again. Then I forced myself out of bed, my knees protesting as they hit the cold floor. I reached for the peephole and pressed my eye to it. Nothing. No shadow. No movement. The hallway was empty. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my jaw. I leaned my forehead against the door, listening. When I heard nothing else, I turned the deadbolt again, even though it was already locked, then pushed the latch once more to be sure. The metal felt warm from my earlier touch, too warm, as if someone else had touched it recently. You are not an easy target, grandmother, I whispered to myself, the words small but steady. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and walked to the desk to check the camera feed. The hallway remained empty, not even a flicker of motion. Still, the whisper had been real. The pause outside my room had been real. My body might be slower, but my instincts had survived decades of classrooms, tragedies, and a widowhood that taught me the difference between worry and warning. I turned off the main light and slipped back into bed, leaving the lamp closest to the door on the lowest setting. The glow reached only a few inches, but it was enough. I lay with my eyes open, listening to every breath of the building, every distant footfall, every shift in the air that brushed against the door. Whatever came next, I would meet it awake. The building had finally begun to settle. The footsteps from earlier had not returned. and the hum of the air vent had become almost a lullaby. I let my eyes drift shut, the lamp still on its lowest setting, the phone still in my hand. Then the scream shattered everything. It cut through the hallway with a force that ripped me out of sleep before I even understood what I was hearing, a woman's scream. Raw, jagged, full of a terror that no imagination could have created. I shot upright, heart slamming against my ribs. Another scream tore through the corridor, even closer. So close it sounded like it was pouring directly through my door. "Please," a voice cried. "Please. Someone." The rest dissolved into another scream. I stumbled toward the door, my fingers reaching for the lock before my mind caught up. The metal felt hot under my hand. Something slammed against the door, hard, jolting the entire frame. The chain lock rattled violently. "Help me," the woman cried. Her voice cracked, slipping into sobs. "Please," he's another crash cut her off. The force shook dust from the top of the doorframe. I froze. My hand hovered over the deadbolt, trembling. If I opened it, I could save her. If I opened it, I might die. I pressed my ear to the door. The hidden camera on the desk beeped softly as it detected movement. My phone vibrated with the alert. On the live feed, a shadow flailed across the strip of hallway the camera could see. A woman's form collapsed toward my door, a man's silhouette looming over her. Her hand slapped the threshold, nails scraping the carpet. "Stop," she begged, voice breaking. "Please," another impact, a grunt. The shadow of her body jerked violently out of view. I backed away, one step, then another. I could hear her breathing ragged, panicked. Then a low male voice muttering something I could not understand. Another thud, a soft sound, like air leaving someone's lungs, and then silence, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I gripped the nightstand to steady myself. My breath came shallow and fast, and my hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The camera feed still showed the dim hallway, but now only one shadow remained broad, deliberate, moving slowly past my door. The man paused. His shadow stopped exactly where the woman's had been a moment earlier. Then something brushed against my door. A fingertip, a palm. It slid slowly along the wood, testing, searching. I covered my mouth with both hands to hold in the sound clawing its way up my throat. He stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then quietly he whispered something. I could not tell what the word was, but the tone was smooth, calm, as if he were talking to himself. His footsteps finally retreated, slow and unhurried, fading down the hall. I stayed standing, knees shaking, staring at the door until my vision blurred. The apartment-style light under the frame glowed in a thin, steady line. Nothing moved beyond it, but I could still feel her last scream vibrating in the air, as if it had sunk into the walls. The need to open the door battled inside me with the instinct to stay alive. I reached for the phone, breath choppy, and checked the feed one more time. The hallway was empty. The woman was gone. Only the smear of a shadow remained where she had begged for help. The silence after the woman's scream felt wrong, too still, too sudden. I stood frozen in place, staring at the door as if it might breathe on its own. My phone's camera feed showed nothing now except the dull yellow lighting of the hallway. Then came a knock. Not frantic, not violent. A polite, measured tap. "Ma'am," a man called softly. "This is hotel security. We need to confirm you're all right." The voice slipped under the door like warm breath, calm, smooth, practiced. My pulse kicked. I stepped quietly to the door, but kept a solid 2 feet of space between us. "Ma'am," he repeated, "I just need you to open the door for a safety check." My throat felt tight. "Please show me your badge through the peephole." A pause. Then footsteps shifting slightly to the side away from the peephole's line of sight. That won't be necessary, he said. Protocol requires visual confirmation from inside the room. That is not how protocol works, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Another pause. The polite veneer stretched thinner. Ma'am, I need you to cooperate, he said, tone dipping lower. Someone reported a disturbance on this floor. Your room was identified. I am fine where I am, he exhaled loudly, as if I were being unreasonable. Look, I'm trying to help. You don't want this to turn into a bigger issue, a threat dressed in customer service clothing. I slowly lifted my phone and typed a message with shaking fingers. Someone at my door claiming to be security. Tom responded immediately. Do not open. Call, I texted back. He won't show a badge. A louder knock made me flinch. Ma'am, please, he said. If you don't open, I'll have to call the police myself, and that will cause unnecessary trouble for you. Trouble for me, not for him. I typed again. He's pressuring me. Tom's reply came almost instantly. Put me on speaker. Stay silent. I obeyed. His voice came through firm and low. Sylvie, do not speak to him again. I am calling Denver police right now. Step away from the door. I turned off the speaker and backed away. Another knock. Harder this time. Ma'am, last chance, the man said. Open up or we escalate this. I didn't answer. He tried the handle. The metal clicked against the deadbolt. A quiet, almost curious sound, as if he were testing it. Ma'am. His tone had lost all politeness. Open the door. My phone buzzed with a call from Tom. I answered in a whisper. Officers are en route, he said. Stay back. Do not say a word to him. He's not security. The knocking stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard a soft scrape, the subtle sound of weight shifting away from my door. Footsteps moved down the hallway, slow but controlled. I stared at the door, my breath shallow. Tom stayed on the line. Police will be there shortly, he said. Stay silent. I nodded even though he could not see me. Clutching the phone in both hands as the muffled footsteps faded into the corridor. The footsteps faded, but the silence he left behind felt wrong. It was not the relief of someone who had given up. It was the pause of someone changing tactics. I stood in the middle of the room, phone still pressed to my ear. Tom's voice came through steady. I am staying on the line, he said. Officers are on the way. They know your room number. Tom, I whispered. He was just outside. I know. That is why you are not opening that door. A sound cut across his words, a faint metallic scrape. Right at the lock. I turned toward the door. The hair on the back of my neck rose. He is back, I said. He is doing something to the lock. Tom swore under his breath. Get something heavy between the door and you. Now. A chair. Anything. Move. Sylvie. My body finally listened. I shoved the desk chair across the carpet, legs squealing soft against the floor, and wedged it under the handle, angling it so the back pressed hard against the door. The scraping grew more deliberate, metal against metal, a small click, then another. He was working the lock like someone who had done it before. My shoulders ached as I dragged the second chair closer, just in case, but there was nowhere else to wedge it. I dropped it to the side and grabbed the lamp from the nightstand. It was heavier than it looked. Solid metal beneath a cheap shade. Tom's voice sharpened. Talk to me. What is he doing now? He is picking the lock, I said. Or whatever you call it. You keep the chain on. The deadbolt, too. That chain might be the difference. The hidden camera on the desk chimed quietly. Motion detected. I saw the live feed still open on my phone's screen, my own door filling the frame, the slightest tremor in the metal as he worked. I shifted my grip on the lamp. My hands were slick with sweat. A soft laugh floated through the door, then his voice, low and close. She is alone, he muttered. I almost did not catch it. She is old. This should not be this hard. Anger cut through my fear like a hot knife. The arrogance in his voice. The way he reduced me to a problem with an age and nothing else, it woke something stubborn that had been in me long before my hair turned gray. The lock clicked. The handle turned slowly, then hit the deadbolt. He jiggled it, testing the resistance. Then came a heavier rattle as he shoved his weight against the door once. The frame shuddered. "Sylvie," Tom said, "move back against the wall beside the door. Not in front of it, X. If he breaks it, You do not want to be standing there." I slid to the side, spine pressing into the wall, lamp raised. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. Outside. Faint. I heard the distant wail of sirens. Denver's night finally responding. He heard them too. He growled something under his breath, then slammed his shoulder into the door with more force. The chain snapped tight, metal whining, the wood around the latch cracking just a little. I gasped. "That chain is holding," Tom said. Voice clipped. "Stay where you are." The man threw himself against the door again. This time the top of the door bowed inward a few inches. Enough that I saw his fingers stretching through the gap near the handle, reaching for the chain. He grabbed for it, knuckles pale, straining. Adrenaline surged through me. I darted forward just enough to swing. The lamp connected with his forearm with a sickening crack. He screamed a raw, furious sound and yanked his arm back through the gap so fast the door slammed against the frame and bounced. "You old," he spat, voice breaking into a curse I could not quite hear. He kicked the door hard, once, twice, making the chain shudder, but it held. The sirens outside grew louder, closer, echoing up the building. Shouts carried faintly through the walls, commands hurled into the night. He heard them clearly now. His next curse was sharp and panicked. His footsteps pounded away from my room, fast this time, heading down the hallway toward the stairs. I stayed where I was, back flat against the wall, lamp still raised, breathing in short, harsh bursts as the wood around the lock creaked and settled. For a long moment after his footsteps faded, I could not move. My back was still pressed to the wall, the lamp raised above my shoulder, my arm burning from the swing that had connected with his arm. The broken doorframe creaked softly, settling back into place like old bones. Tom's voice was still coming through the phone, faint and urgent. "Sylvie, talk to me. Is he gone?" I swallowed, my throat dry. He ran down the hall, toward the stairs. Outside, the sirens grew louder, no longer distant. They rose and fell in overlapping waves, bouncing off the buildings, filling the night with a sound that made my knees go weak. "You hold tight," Tom said. "Officers are there. Do not open that door for anyone until they prove who they are. Badge to the peephole." Got it. Got it. More noise in the hallway now, heavy boots pounding up the stairs, radio chatter, sharp voices calling out room numbers and commands. "Denver police," someone shouted. "Stay inside your rooms." The lamp started to slide from my grip. I lowered it carefully and set it on the bed, fingers throbbing. My shoulders ached. My wrists felt strained. But nothing seemed broken. I forced my legs to move and crouched beside the bed, phone still in hand, staying low the way Tom had drilled into his own kids when they were little. Through the thin line under the door, shadows moved past in quick flashes. There was another shout farther down the hall, then the sharp, unmistakable sound of someone being ordered to the ground, a short scuffle, a curse, metal clinking. "Sounds like they got one," Tom murmured. "Stay where you are." I nodded. Even though he could not see me, my breathing came in short, shallow bursts. Outside the window, light strobed through the blinds red, then blue, then red again, painting thin stripes across the carpet. The bedspread, my shaking hands, Denver's downtown skyline, which had seemed so ordinary when I arrived, now looked like a backdrop to something I did not yet have words for. Someone pounded on my door, not the hard, angry hits from before, but firm. "Official knocks. Denver police," a male voice called. "Ma'am, we need to check on you. Are you able to respond?" I froze again. Tom's voice sharpened. "Ask for the badge." Through the peephole. "Do not skip that step." I stood slowly, every muscle stiff, and moved to the door. My knees trembled more than I wanted to admit. "I hear you," I said, forcing my voice to carry. "Show me your badge through the peephole." There was a brief, respectful pause, then the metallic scrape of someone adjusting their position. "Ma'am, I am holding it up now," the man said. "Name is Officer Daniel Ruiz, Denver Police Department. There are 2 other officers with me." I pressed my eye to the peephole. A round badge filled the view, steady and close. Beyond it, in a narrow sliver, I could see dark uniforms, radio wires at their shoulders, the unmistakable bulk of protective vests. No ball cap, no casual jacket. I took a slow breath. "All right," I said. "I am unlocking the door." The deadbolt turned stiffly, as if it did not trust anyone anymore. I slid the chain back with shaking fingers and opened the door just enough to see them clearly 3 officers, one slightly older than the others, his expression calm but alert. He glanced at the split wood around the lock, at the chair still wedged under the handle, and his jaw tightened. "Mrs. Carver?" he asked. "Yes." My voice came out thin. "I am Officer Ruiz." He said, "Are you hurt?" "I do not think so," I said, just shaken. He nodded once, then stepped inside slowly, gesturing to his partners to wait by the door. "We have a suspect in custody from your floor," he said. "We need to confirm what happened in here." He looked at the lamp on the bed, then back at me. "Is that what you used?" A strange laugh caught in my chest. I did not have anything else. One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. "You did more than most." His radio crackled. A woman's voice came through, confirming that another officer was escorting a bleeding man down the stairwell in handcuffs. "Arm injury," she said, "likely from impact. He is swearing about some old lady with a lamp." Officer Ruiz looked at me again. "I am guessing that would be you." I gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. My hands were shaking hard now that the danger had passed. Adrenaline had carried me through the swing. The aftermath felt like dropping suddenly down an elevator shaft. My gaze landed on the small camera still sitting on the desk, its red light blinking quietly as if nothing unusual had happened. "I have footage," I said. "The whole thing, I think, from the moment he started trying the lock." Officer Ruiz turned toward it. "You set up a camera." "The receptionist told me to." I said. "She changed my room, told me to put a hidden camera in here." He looked genuinely surprised. "The night clerk." "Yes, Kara." He exchanged a quick look with one of the younger officers. "We will need that footage." He said, "That may be exactly what we need tonight." I unlocked my phone with clumsy fingers and opened the app. The live feed showed all of us standing in the room, the damaged door in the background. Red and blue light still flashing faintly through the blinds. I scrolled back, hands trembling, until the video showed the door intact, then the knob turning, the chain straining, the gap where his arm forced through. My own voice echoed faintly from the recording. A startled gasp, then the dull, brutal thud of metal hitting bone. I could not watch any more. I handed the phone to Officer Ruiz. He took it carefully. "We will export this," he said. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Carver. You stayed inside and you fought back when you had to." I looked at the door, the splintered wood, the bent chain. the chair still jammed beneath the handle. It stood there, slightly crooked, as if it had chosen my side at the last possible second and was still recovering from the decision. My hand hovered over the broken frame for a moment before I let it drop back to my side. They walked me through the lobby like I was made of glass. Guests had started to come down, some wrapped in hotel robes, others in rumpled travel clothes, all clutching their curiosity like it was a ticket to a show. Officer Ruiz cut a path through them with a quiet authority that made people move without arguing. Kara stood behind the front desk, talking to another officer. Her hands were clenched around a paper cup, knuckles white. When she saw me, her eyes filled so fast, it looked like she might drown in them. "Mrs. Carver," she breathed. "Are you—" "I am standing," I said. "That will do for tonight." She let out a shaky half-laugh that turned into a cough. Officer Ruiz nodded toward a door behind the desk. "We will use the manager's office," he said. "Detective is already waiting." The office was small and cramped with filing cabinets and a battered desk. The overhead light hummed faintly. A man in plain clothes sat by a laptop on the desk. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. Hair beginning to gray at the temples. He looked up as we entered. "Mrs. Carver," he said. Standing. "I am Detective Mark Ellison. I am very sorry for what you went through." "Thank you," I replied, though the words felt too small for the night. Kara slipped into the room behind us and closed the door. She stayed near the wall, as if ready to bolt. Detective Ellison gestured to a chair. "If you can sit, that might be easier. We are going to review the footage from your camera." My stomach twisted. "All right," Officer Ruiz placed my phone on the desk. "The video is already open," he said. We scrolled to about 15 minutes before the first noise she reported. The detective connected the phone to the laptop with a cable from his pocket. The image on the screen jumped, then settled into the familiar view of my door from the angle of the desk. "Here we go," he said softly. It took only a few seconds for the dread to return. The first clip showed my door completely still, the corridor beyond empty. Timestamps moved along the bottom. Every second, a reminder that I had been lying in that bed, unaware of how close danger already was. "There," Ruiz said quietly. "See the handle. The knob shifted a fraction, just enough to notice if you were looking for it." The detective paused and rewound a few seconds, playing it again, frame by frame. "Testing the lock," he murmured. He wanted to know if she had latched it. I watched myself not appear, my sleeping body somewhere off-screen, ignorant of the small, deliberate twist inches away. The feed jumped forward. The door shuddered slightly as a heavier push tested the resistance. The chain did not move yet. The deadbolt held. "Wait," Ellison said. He zoomed in on the lower right corner of the frame where a shadow crossed the hall. "Back that up." He rewound, then paused as a hand slid briefly into view near the latch side of the door. In the grainy light, I could still make out the rectangular glint between the fingers. "That is not a regular guest keycard," Ruiz said. "That looks like a master." Ellison frowned. "The kind staff uses to open every room." He pointed at a smudge on the wrist. "Zoom there." The image pixelated as he enlarged it, but a pattern emerged on the attacker's skin. Faded lines of ink, curved and broken, like the remnants of a tattoo that had been there for years. "Left wrist," the detective said. "We will have the officers check." Kara let out a small sound, almost a whimper. We all turned toward her. "I have heard him," she whispered. "That voice. He has been in the lobby before." Ellison's attention sharpened. "You are sure?" She nodded, shoulders shaking. "He used another name last month. Asked weird questions about late check-ins, which rooms had people traveling alone. I told my supervisor. But he said I was overreacting." Her shame burned in the room like a second light. Ellison's jaw tightened. We will come back to that. For now, let us finish this. He hit play again. On the screen, the door rattled harder. The knob jerked back and forth as the attacker threw his shoulder against it. The chain jerked, grooves in the wood deepening. The sound of each hit made my body flinch in real time, even though it was already over. Then the gap appeared a narrow wedge of darkness where the top of the door bowed inward. My voice came through the speakers, a startled, raw noise I did not recognize until I did. From inside the room, my own silhouette moved into view, just a portion of my arm holding the lamp. The image caught the tremor in my grip, the stiffness in my shoulders. I looked older on the screen than I had ever allowed myself to feel. Small and stubborn and terribly breakable. There he is, Ruiz said quietly. The arm forced through the gap, pale wrist with the faded tattoo straining as he reached for the chain. In that instant, his face slid into view, only half of it, but enough. Dark stubble, a small scar along his cheekbone, eyes narrowed with focused anger. Kara clapped a hand over her mouth. That is him, she choked out. Same man, same eyes. The lamp swung down. On the footage, the impact sounded dull and heavy, but in my chest it echoed like a gunshot. His scream filled the small office, followed by his curses and the thunder of his retreating footsteps. The image steadied again. The door bounced back into place. Trembling, the chain, bent but unbroken, hung across the latch like a medal no one had expected it to earn. I stared at the woman in the frame as she backed out of view, the top of her gray hair just visible as she sank to the floor. It felt like watching someone else, someone I might have known a long time ago and lost touch with. A woman who had not wanted to be heroic, only alive. Ellison paused the video and turned the screen away from me a little, giving me a sliver of privacy. We will secure a copy of this for evidence, he said gently. You will not have to watch it again unless the court requires it. I have already watched it once in my head. I said, my voice sounded thin, almost far away. Ruiz rested his hand on the back of the chair. This is not you being dramatic, Mrs. Carver. This is proof of everything you felt. Kara spoke up, her voice unsteady but stronger than before. I am so sorry, she said. I knew something was wrong with his questions. I knew it, and no one listened. Tonight I could not ignore it again. I looked at her. You changed my room. You told me to put that camera up. You did more than most people would have. She shook her head, eyes shining. I did what I should have done last time. The detective collected my phone and handed it back. For tonight, he said, you did what you needed to do to stay alive. And she did what she needed to do to finally be heard. We will handle the rest from here. His words did not erase the image on the screen, but they settled somewhere deep under the trembling, like a weight holding me to the chair long enough to breathe. The moment the detective stepped out, the room felt smaller, just me and Kara. Silence hovering between us like a truth neither of us wanted to open first. She stood by the door, fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve, her eyes fixed on the floor. Kara, I said softly, sit with me. She shook her head at first, but finally crossed the room and sat across from me, her spine stiff, as if bracing for judgment. I should have warned you sooner, she whispered. Not at the counter, not when he was already here. I should have acted the moment I saw your name in the system. You acted when it mattered, I said. Her breath left her in a sharp, painful exhale. You do not understand. This happened before. Those 4 words settled heavily between us. She rubbed her palms together, unable to keep them still. A year ago, a girl checked in young, maybe 21, 22. She called down around midnight saying someone kept trying her handle. I went up to check, but the hallway was quiet. My supervisor told me not to make a scene, said she was probably anxious or drunk. Kara's voice cracked. 2 days later, she vanished. I felt my chest tighten. Vanished where they never found out. She swallowed hard. Her parents came. Police came. But without proof, the hotel acted like it was some isolated incident. Management told me I had misread the situation, overreacted. They said night shifts can make staff imaginative. That was not your fault, I said firmly. She flinched, but I felt something. I knew something was wrong. I felt it the same way I felt it tonight when that man walked in wearing your name on his reservation. My breath caught. He used my name before I arrived. She nodded, tears pooling. I knew that girl's case was buried. I knew no one here would listen if I said something was off again. So I did the only thing I could do. I switched your room, and I told you to set up that camera. Her voice dropped to a whisper, because this time I needed more than instinct. I needed proof. I leaned forward. You saved my life because you listened to yourself, not them. Her shoulders trembled. I should have done it last year. That girl might still... No, I said sharply, cutting through her guilt. You had no support, no authority, no one backing you. Someone else failed her, not you. Kara wiped at her cheeks. Frustrated, I keep replaying that night, hearing how scared she sounded. I hear you now, too, and I think, what if I had been wrong tonight? What if I scared you for nothing? I shook my head. I saw his eyes through that door. I heard him. He was not going to leave until someone stopped him. I paused. And you did. She drew a shaky breath. When I saw the way he looked at the front desk earlier tonight, I felt that same chill I felt last year. The same pattern, same timing, same type of guest. I promised myself I would never ignore that feeling again. Not ever. I reached across the space between us and placed my hand over hers. Her fingers were cold, tense. You trusted the part of yourself they told you to silence, I said. And you gave me a chance that girl never had. Kara covered her face with her free hand, shoulders shaking. I needed to make it right. She said, just once. For someone, you did, I whispered. She lowered her hands. Eyes red but steadier. The detectives will want more details tomorrow. I will tell them everything. I do not care what management thinks. Not anymore. Good, I said, because they will listen this time. Her voice softened to a fragile, relieved murmur. Thank you for not blaming me. I squeezed her hand. Tonight was not about blame. It was about you refusing to ignore your instincts again. For the first time that night, Kara sat back in her chair, not relaxed exactly, but less afraid, like someone carrying a weight she had finally set down. Outside the small office window, faint red light from a lingering patrol car stretched across the wall, sharp and unwavering. Kara followed it with her eyes, then looked back at me. I cannot undo last year, she whispered, but I can live differently because of it. I nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle deep inside me, quiet and certain, like a vow she was making to herself. She had saved my life, but she had also saved her own. Detective Ellison returned with a folder tucked under his arm, the kind of folder that looked heavier than its paper contents should allow. He set it on the table between us, then took the seat across from me. Kara lingered near the wall, arms wrapped around herself, listening without speaking. We have enough to move forward tonight, Ellison said, but you need to understand the bigger picture. My pulse thudded once, sharp and low. Officer Ruiz closed the door behind him. This is not an isolated attack, he added. What happened to you fits a pattern we have been trying to confirm. Pattern, I asked. Ellison nodded and opened the folder. Inside were printed reports, clipped together dates, names, cities scattered across multiple states. We believe a small organized network has been operating in several cities over the last 2 years, mostly near airports, train stations, and major transit hubs. Denver, a crossroads. Of course it made sense. They target specific types of travelers. He continued. Women checking in alone, guests who arrive late when the lobby is quiet, older guests, especially. His eyes flicked to mine, not unkind, but direct. People they assume will hesitate, or trust authority, or be slow to react. I clenched my hands under the table. Kara's voice came softly from the corner. The man tonight. He asked which rooms had single female travelers. I remember that now. He pretended to be joking. Ellison gave her a brief nod. That fits. They use stolen booking data from hacked travel sites. Sometimes, they manipulate online reservations and create duplicates like your case. Mrs. Carver, someone checked in under your name earlier so they could get access to your room before you arrived. My stomach tightened. So it was never about me personally. No, Ruiz said. It was opportunity, a profile they follow. Ellison tapped a grainy surveillance of a hallway from another hotel. They use master keys acquired through compromised staff members. Or they pose as maintenance or security. They know when to approach a room based on blind spots in hotel camera coverage. He flipped another page. In some cities, they had help from staff. In others, like here, they were working around staff. And the van outside last night, I asked quietly, that was real. He said, one of the vehicles they have used before. We identified it from another case. The weight of his words settled slowly, squeezing out the thought I had clung to earlier that maybe this had been a terrible, unlucky twist of fate aimed only at me. Ruiz leaned forward slightly. Your footage is the clearest we have ever gotten. We have faces, timestamps, the master key visible, the tattoo we can match. This is the break we needed. Kara blinked hard, tears catching the light. If I had listened last year, Ellison stopped her with a gentle but firm tone. You listened tonight. That is what matters now. I nodded, though the air felt thick in my lungs. I was not the first. No, Ellison said, but because of your evidence. We can make sure you are one of the last. Silence followed, not empty full, aching, threaded through with the stories of women whose names were not in this room but hovered in its corners. I exhaled slowly, the truth tugging at me from the inside. I had not been chosen. I had been categorized. And if I had not checked in when I did, if Kara had not recognized the danger, they would have done this to someone else without hesitation. Back in Santa Fe, the familiar shape of my small adobe house should have comforted me. Instead, the moment I stepped inside, I locked the door twice. Then I checked the windows. Then I checked them again. The routine grew from instinct, not logic. I placed my suitcase by the entryway and kept my shoes on. Even the quiet felt different, thinner, stretched. A delivery truck rumbled down the street, and my body jerked before I could stop it. That first night, I left the hallway light on, then the kitchen light, then the small lamp in the living room. Shadows had become something to manage, not ignore. The next morning, Aaron called. Mom, after everything that happened, maybe you should take a break from traveling. I pressed my palm against the cool countertop. I will not stop living my life. I am not saying forever, he said gently. Just until you feel safe again. I do not know when that will be. There was silence, weighted with fear neither of us wanted to say aloud. Later, my daughter, Elise, called too. Mom, you could stay with me for a while, she said. You should not be alone. I am fine. I told her, though my voice wavered. I just need time. You do not sound fine. I am not giving up my home. She sighed softly, not wanting to push, but wanting to protect me. Just promise you will tell us if you need anything. After the calls, I sat on the couch, phone in my lap, staring at the light pooling across the floor. I felt older, not in my bones, but in the way fear clung to me like an extra layer of skin. But I also felt something stubborn rising beneath it. I had survived because I listened, because I fought, because I refused to be dismissed as fragile. I would not shrink my world now, even if I checked my locks a second time before bed. The adobe walls of my little Santa Fe condo had always felt warm, familiar, rooted in a life I rebuilt after losing Mark. But when I stepped through the door this time, something in me tightened. I shut it gently, then locked it, then tried the deadbolt, then checked it again. Habit or fear. I could not tell the difference anymore. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet I used to enjoy. Tonight, it felt hollow. I walked through each room, hand on every window latch, pressing each one twice to be sure. When I reached the kitchen, I turned on every light, even the under-cabinet ones I rarely used. My phone buzzed. "Aaron, Mom, text me the second you get home." I replied, "I'm here." A moment later, he called. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Really all right. I am home," I said. "That is enough for now." He hesitated. "Mom, maybe you should pause traveling for a bit, just until things settle." There it was, the fear disguised as caution, the caution disguised as protection. I loved him for it, but a part of me bristled. "I am 66, not made of glass," I said. "I will not stop living my life." "I know," he said, but the doubt in his voice bruised something inside me. "I just don't want another close call." "Neither do I murmured. "But hiding won't bao zheng da." After we hung up, I set my bag down, then froze at the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside ordinary neighbor footsteps. Nothing unusual. Still, my heart climbed into my throat. I waited until the sound faded before I moved again. I left the living room lamp on, then the hallway light, then the bedroom lamp. Darkness no longer felt like rest. It felt like a place someone could hide. As I changed into pajamas, I caught my reflection in the mirror older. Yes. Tired. Yes, but still here. Still fighting my shaking hands, still refusing to let fear shape the last stretch of my life. Another text arrived this time from my daughter. "Ellen, Mom, Aaron told me, come stay with me for a few weeks. It will help. I will think about it." I whispered to the empty room, though I already knew I would not go. I could not start surrendering pieces of my independence one offer at a time. But later, when a delivery truck rumbled past outside and I startled hard enough to drop my phone, I pressed my palms to the counter and breathed through the tremor in my chest. Something inside me had cracked open in that hotel hallway, something I could not patch overnight. I would not let it cage me, but I could no longer pretend the world was harmless. When I finally lay down, I kept the lamp by my bed glowing. My door was locked twice, the chain secured, the security bar propped underneath. Only then did I close my eyes, knowing I would wake at the smallest sound. A woman still independent, but now painfully aware that independence had teeth on both sides. Tom called me 3 days after I returned home. I could hear the worry in the steadiness of his voice. "Sis," he said, "there's a group here in Santa Fe, women teaching women travel safety, digital privacy, that kind of thing. I think you should talk to them." "I am not a teacher anymore," I said, though the words felt empty even as I said them. "You were a teacher for over 3 decades," he replied. "And you survived something most people cannot even imagine. They need to hear you." I hesitated, but fear had been sitting inside me like a stone. Maybe speaking would help loosen it. The following Wednesday, I walked into a community center meeting room filled with folding chairs and women of every age, nurses, retirees, airport staff, a few mothers with gray at their temples. They greeted me with soft smiles. not pitying, but knowing. A woman named Darlene began the session, talking about online safety, stolen booking data, and how easy it was for people to track travel habits. I listened quietly, my hands folded tightly in my lap. When the break came, Darlene approached me. "Your brother told me a little," she said gently. "Would you share? Only if you feel ready." I thought about Kara's trembling voice, the screams in the hallway, the sound of the chain straining as a stranger leaned his weight into my door. "All right," I said. As I began speaking, the room shifted. The chatter died. Women leaned forward. I told them about the reservation switch, the hidden camera, the man in the lobby who watched more than he pretended to. I told them about the whisper through the door, the slamming, the gap where his arm forced through, and the lamp I swung because it was all I had. Some covered their mouths, others nodded slowly, as if matching my story to pieces of their own experiences. When I finished, the room was silent. Then an older woman in the back lifted her hand. "A few years ago," she said, "a man knocked on my hotel door at night saying he was maintenance. I opened it." Her voice trembled. "He only wanted a tip. But now I see how easily it could have been different." A murmur of agreement rippled across the room. Something in my chest loosened, not relief exactly, but a sense of direction. My fear was still there, but now it had somewhere to go, somewhere it could become something besides weight. Darlene touched my shoulder lightly. "You just helped every woman in this room," she said. I swallowed, my voice thin. Maybe that is a start. I returned to Denver in early spring. The air had the same dry chill I remembered, but it no longer stung it, only reminded me of a night I survived. The city looked unchanged, busy and indifferent. Yet every streetlight and passing siren tugged at a place inside me that still tightened without permission. The prosecutor's office asked me to give a statement in person. Tom offered to drive up from Colorado Springs, but I told him no. I needed to face this city without someone shielding me. Fear had shaped too many weeks. I wanted to meet it standing. After the statement, I walked to the small cafe across from the hotel. It had been rebranded since the attack. New sign, new lighting, new staff uniforms, but the bones of the building were the same. The third-floor windows still glinted the same way in the afternoon sun. Kara was already waiting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug she had probably forgotten to drink from. When she looked up and saw me, her face softened into a smile that carried relief and something gentler. "Sylvie," she said, standing quickly. "I did not know if you would really come. I told you I would," I said, opening my arms. She hugged me tightly, tighter than she had the night everything happened. When she pulled back, her eyes shined, but this time it was not fear. It was something closer to pride. "They arrested the third man last month," she said. "Did you hear I did?" It helped. I sat across from her. "How are you holding up?" She exhaled. "Better. The detectives cleared me. Management changed. They said I was instrumental." She shook her head. "Strange how people treat you once the truth is undeniable. You earned every bit of that respect," I said. She reached into her coat pocket. "I made something for you." She slid a small card across the table. Handwritten. Simple. "Trust your instincts." They saved both of us. I traced the words with my thumb. "Kara, this means more than you know. You taught me something too," she said quietly. That courage can show up at any age, that it is not loud or perfect. Sometimes it is just refusing to open a door. I laughed softly, surprised at how warm it felt. We talked for another hour about her new job prospects, my work with the safety group, and the odd, unsteady journey from terror to something like resilience. When we finally stepped outside, The hotel across the street looked like any other business again. But to me, it would always be a battlefield with its lights turned back on. As we said goodbye, Kara squeezed my hand. "I hope you know you changed something," she said. "For me, for others too." I nodded, unable to speak around the lump in my throat. Back home in Santa Fe that evening, I taped her card beside my door, just above the lock I check each night. The handwriting was small, steady, brave. I stood there for a long moment, still afraid. Yes, but not only afraid. There was room now for something else. Something like strength. Something like choice.